Yes, guys, Francis is back at it again. Look, we know this guy from previous videos, linked to those in the description below, also at the end of this video. And I must admit, I do love tearing this guy apart, basically because he uses nothing but insults and misrepresenting the truth. So, he's done it again, and let's do it again. Maybe this time he'll respond. Also, before we get into this video, guys, I apologize for the quality of this video of his. I don't know if they know what 720p is, but this is the best quality that I could find. So I apologize in advance for that. Let's jump into it.
The NRA is all about protecting your rights, unless you're black. Then they say jack shit.
Oh, that's interesting. So Dana didn't get up and talk at CPAC about how black people were dying in Chicago and how black mothers were crying in Chicago because of black on black crime. Roll it.
Our ratings gold to you and many in the legacy media in the back. And notice I said crying white mothers because there are thousands of grieving black mothers in Chicago every weekend, and you don't see town halls for them, do you? Where's the CNN town hall for Chicago? Where's the CNN town hall for sanctuary cities?
Now, since we're talking about black on black crime, please tell me the last time the Young Turks went through Since You Guys Love Hypocrites So Much, and tell us the last time you did a story on black crime in Chicago. I'm not talking about some black guy getting shot by a cop. I am talking, because that's, you know, your race baiting shit. I am talking about you going through and doing a piece on Chicago on black crime. I am very much looking forward to the link to that video.
When you get executed.
Many in legacy media love mass shootings. Crying white mothers are ratings gold.
Okay, so what she is talking about there isn't actually the NRA. She's actually talking about the part mainstream media actually plays in these school shootings. I'll get to that in a sec. So at the end of the day, let's face facts. Mainstream media does love a school shooting due to ratings. Every time there is a school shooting, there is a sudden intake in ratings. Now, at the end of the day, you can't blame that on people. People love watching tragedy on TV, so that's fine. You get that. But the funny thing is that a few years ago, there was a paper sent out to every mainstream media, and I'm putting a link to this in the description below. It went through and labeled some simple methods that mainstream media can do to stop or help stop copycat attacks. The theory is that the copycat attacks happen after the school shootings because they see all the fame and whatnot that the original school shooter got, and they want a piece of that pie as well, so they go through and they copy the incident. Which is actually what we saw with Nicholas Cruz, for example. It came out about him being the school shooter, and literally a few days later, another school shooting was thwarted by his grandmother actually reporting it to the local authorities, who actually went through and arrested the teen who was also planning on shooting up a school. So what were the simple things they went through and listed? 1, don't name them. So by naming the perpetrator of the school shooting, you are giving them credit, you are giving them attention, and even if they were killed, their memory, quote, lives on. So that's why you'll see a lot of people like Phil DeFranco and me, for example, will name them at first, and then we'll just stop referencing them as people as much as we can. Another thing the study went and suggested was that mainstream media refer from sharing photos, writings, or manifestos. Like, for example, dislike family, work, school history, or weapon preferences of mass shooters with the public. Okay, sounds fair, right? Another thing they went through and said was that also that mainstream media should stop doing their traditional sirens when they're talking about the police shootings. Leading with these stories, for example, is also something else that they should not be doing, and stop running constant coverage of the school shootings as well. Now, keeping all this in mind, Let's think about Nicholas Cruz. I know I just mentioned him. I have to, but yeah. At the end of the day, how many of these things are still happening? Yes, even after mainstream media was notified that by going through and completing all these or doing all these, that they are actually encouraging mass shooter copycat attacks, they still, to this day, continue to talk about that. Why? Because of ratings. That is what she goes on about here. That is why she is talking about that. Now, you can label her a garbage person as much as you want, but the fact of the matter is that what she is actually saying is actually accurate. Mainstream media loves tragedy because it sells. It sells ratings, it sells papers, it sells people watching the TV station, and then they can go through and charge more for the advertising during those, quote, peak times.
So this was NRA mouthpiece Dana What's-Her-Face pleasing the CPAC crowd with her insanely inflammatory, disgustingly distasteful rhetoric as she tries to defend the organisation that signs her checks.
You want to talk about disgusting rhetoric? Let's talk about CNN's town hall, where you had a bunch of students bullying a rape survivor. And let's talk about where you had a bunch of children getting up and insulting a lady of the NRA who actually took the time to sit down and have a civil discord with them. And apart from that, I don't get what the point of all this is. You have a problem? This is her job. She is the NRA spokeslady. This is what she does for a living.
You see, Dana believes crying white mothers are ratings gold and the real victims are law-abiding gun owners.
Many in legacy media love mass shootings. You guys love it. Now, I'm not saying that you love the tragedy, but I am saying that you love the ratings.
Dana believes crying white mothers are ratings gold and
you love the ratings. You love the ratings.
Kind of sounds here like she's not actually saying she loves the ratings, but that mainstream media loves the ratings. Doesn't it? Just saying. Might have, lied here.
because she cares about law-abiding gun owners, right? Like Falando Casteel.
I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me.
Oh, that's right, she doesn't. She actually justified Casteel's execution because of, wait for it, weed.
And welcome to the taken out of context section of the game show for $200. No, but seriously, at the end of the day, what he's talking about here is where Dana Lash actually went through and was correcting someone on Twitter who said, quote, followed the safety rules he was taught and was shot to death by NRA said nothing. Well, no, I'm sorry. She's actually just simply pointing out that he didn't actually follow the safety rules, that he was actually still breaking the law when he was in possession of a controlled substance and a firearm simultaneously, which is illegal. Stop lying. Which is what I'm also going to say to you, Francis. Stop lying.
So as Dana, Wayne LaPierre and other gun nut conservatives do backflips to defend the NRA and push for more measures to have guns in our society, I think it's time we reminded them of Falando Casteel, seeing as they clearly forgot because they have said jack shit about the situation after he, a law-abiding gun owner, was killed by law enforcement despite following all the measures they claim will keep Americans safe.
And this is why we love the Young Turks so much. Let's take a tragedy from the headlines. Let's do no research on what actually happened. And let's just claim, quote, it's the evil white man being a racist. So, I apologize if I get some of these names wrong. But Germano Yazin, name's on the screen, who is a Latino, oh damn it, there goes the white man shooting narrative, was also cleared of 2 lesser charges arising from the July 2016 traffic stop in St. Paul's suburb. Jurors deliberated for about 29 hours over 5 days. Casteel was shot seconds after informing Nazin, I apologise, name's on the screen, that he was carrying a gun. Nazin testified that Casteel was pulling his gun out of his pocket despite commands not to do so. The defense also argued Casteel was high on marijuana and said that affected his actions. So, just to confirm, this law-abiding citizen, air quote as to what you said, was a guy who was high on drugs who should have not only had a firearm, but should have not been carrying the drugs at the same time, reached for his gun while the police told him not to, seconds after him informing the police officer that he had a gun. This is your law-abiding citizen. Really? Oh, by the way, this current study here shows you're actually more likely to be shot if you're white than black by a police officer. So, when was the last time you talked about this?
In Wayne LaPierre's war cry, he cites good guys with a gun as a solution to every problem we face.
A bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
And now, good guys with a gun means arming teachers. Because we don't have funding to pay the teachers what they deserve or invest in new school supplies, but we can invest in SWAT training and giving the lunch ladies grenades, right?
So for a start, nobody is talking about giving the lunch lady grenades. But I get what you're saying, you're making a joke. It's just not very funny. But regardless, and at the end of the day, I actually happen to agree with you. We should not be arming teachers with guns. Personally, I would like to see Vietnam vets or veterans from the army actually going through and actually doing a sort of community outreach program where they go through, they patrol the schools, and they actually intermix with the students, like with on the playground and stuff, maybe playing football with them and that, and actually go through and actually building rapport with the community. I think that would do a lot more than giving a teacher a pistol. But funny that you mentioned this, because there was actually a class offered to teachers to learn how to use a firearm. And out of 50 seats that were offered, 250 teachers signed up for it. So while you and I might necessarily like this idea, at the end of the day, apparently teachers do. Oh, and to finally combat that point about the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, why do we give the police department firearms if that's not the case? Why is it that this Texas shooting where the guy went and shot up the church, article behind, was stopped by a civilian with an AR-15?
But speaking of arming school workers, Falando Casteel was a school employee. He was also a gun owner, licensed and registered. So in retrospect, he literally could not embody what the NRA claims to be the solution anymore if he tried. Oh, except one thing, that is, Falando Casteel was black.
Except that Falando Casteel was also breaking the law by carrying drugs while also carrying a handgun, while also being high on these said drugs, and while by reaching for the pistol after informing police officers that he had one, and the police reportedly telling him not to reach for it. I'm sorry, but if the police officer sees someone reaching for a gun after knowing he has one, he is going to start shooting. What part of this do you not understand? Oh, and by the way, the person that shot Casteel wasn't even white. He was actually Mexican or Latino. So, what, you're saying they're racist now? I thought it was only white people that were racist.
So all that bullshit about being legally licensed to protect yourself was thrown out the window when Officer Yanez panicked after Casteel told him he was legally in possession of a firearm and as a result, executed him. So tell me again, Wayne, Dana, Rifleheads, why don't you ever mention this example?
So let's ignore the fact that all you seem to do is insult people and move on to the facts. Casteel was high on drugs while carrying said drugs, while also carrying a firearm. This is actually illegal. And at the end of the day, the cop just didn't shoot him because he was black. He shot at him because he was reaching for his pistol after telling the police officer he was carrying one. If you reach for your gun while you've just told a police officer that you have one, they are going to get trigger happy.
Why have you, the advocates who claim to be for all American Second Amendment rights, not talked about Casteel? And we all know why, because here is what they don't want to talk about in amidst this arm the teachers drivel. Do the same rights they are vouching for as the solution to mass shootings apply to all Americans? To black Americans? Because if a black man pulled over for a busted taillight gets 7 bullets after disclosing his perfectly legal possession of a weapon, what do you think will happen to, say, a black teacher who draws a weapon during a mass shooting?
So the Casteel thing we've already gone through and debunked, but seems you have a boner for this subject. Let's do it again. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is the problem with basing your whole argument on one situation. Casteel was illegally carrying a firearm due to the fact that he also was transporting on him drugs while being high on said drugs, while telling the police officer that he had a pistol or a concealed gun, and then said reaching for gun. That is why he was shot. It was nothing to do with race. I know you guys have a boner for racism, but in this situation, it does not even come into the factors. So let's go through and talk about the NRA talking about blacks being killed by weapons or guns. So at the end of the day, they actually do bring this up quite a bit. For example, in this video alone, without even searching the internet, I have found 2 examples where they're actually talking about guns killing black people. For example, this from CPAC.
And notice I said crying white mothers because there are thousands of grieving black mothers in Chicago every weekend, and you don't see town halls for them, do you? Where's the CNN town hall for Chicago? Where's the CNN town hall for sanctuary cities?
And this tweet where they're actually talking about Casteel. Now this is without me even searching through the internet finding examples of this. And you know this because you've gone through and you've referenced both examples. So you're lying. Stop lying.
Do you think that teacher will feel comfortable that their life and their rights will be respected? Do you think they will feel safe and secure, not just up against a mass shooter, but against law enforcement who enter the premises? I mean, good God, Casteel could not have followed the playbook of what to do when you have a gun any more than what he did, yet he was still killed. And the organization that is out here preaching the case to armed teachers said nothing.
They've been completely silenced. Completely silenced.
Why do you constantly try and race bait people? Okay, yeah, this is insane. It really is. You're now assuming that because a black teacher has a pistol and stops a school shooting, that he is going to be shot because Casteel, air quotes, was, quote, following the legal requirements. Well, no, he wasn't. He was carrying drugs while being high on drugs, while reaching for the weapon after telling police that he had said weapon. At the end of the day, if black teachers, for example, are going to not want to get shot in your situation as long as they're, quote, not high on drugs while carrying drugs, while telling said police or SWAT that they have a gun, while reaching for it, they should be fine. Because that's the situation where Casteel was shot. And I'm sorry, I find your whole argument is nothing more than just race baiting. And you go on and you call conservatives racist.
But if Casteel had been a law-abiding white gun owner, killed by a black assailant, from the moment he took his last breath to the day his murderer was acquitted, the NRA would have been rallying behind him and his family and fundraising off his memory for the rest of time. But they haven't, which is something Casteel's mother rightfully addressed when she called LaPierre out on his shite.
I'm sorry, but Casteel was breaking the law. What would you like the NRA to do? Defend someone who was illegally breaking the firearms law? And I'm sorry, but I've already pointed out before, you're more likely to be shot if white than black. So, your whole argument, you're nothing more than a race baiter from this situation.
So as we watch the NRA and their ambassadors burst blood vessels screaming, it's not the gun's fault, whenever the topic of gun control arises, just remember that they are nothing but a bunch of hypocritical, contradictory money grabbers who could not give a shit about the Constitution they claim to hold so dear, unless it fits their racist narrative.
Which is why you see the Young Turks going on about black-on-black crime in Chicago. Oh, wait, you don't. Oh, maybe it doesn't fit their narrative. Yeah, at the end of the day, look, I'm sorry, but what? Your whole argument about this video was completely debunked. In fact, I would love to challenge you in a debate. Please, for the love of God, I'm going to tweet at you. I would love to see you in a debate. Lifetime, Tonkasaw, Andy Worski, bring it. Let's go. Because I'm actually from Australia, where we actually have tough gun laws. So seeing as you guys love talking about Australian gun laws so much, let's go through and drop some facts on your head like a ton of bricks. After the Australian government went through and banned semi-automatic weapons, guess what increased? Violence! Yes! Literally the year that they went through and banned firearms. The semi-automatic firearms, that is. They went through and violence in Australia skyrocketed. In fact, the only time the violence in Australia actually went down was 2003, some 5 years later, when they actually went through and employed 10% more police officers to go through and actually patrol the cities. And the whole argument that, you know, less guns means less violence, it didn't work in Australia. In fact, what you actually do is you go through and actually take the firearms off the law-abiding citizen. You really think a criminal is going to hand in their firearm because you asked them nicely? Sure, okay, and I live in Alice in Wonderland and I tap my shoes together and go, I want to go home too. Because at the end of the day, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that. It didn't work like that in Australia, and it sure as hell is not going to work like that in the US. In fact, there is a good representation in the actual statistics to show that guns actually do stop violence. Women use them for self-defense. Shop owners use them for actually taking on armed guys who try and rob their stores. It is a way of protecting yourself. That is why we give the police officers guns and we don't give them knives, for example.
Because the NRA is an organisation that fights more for the rights of a mentally ill, evil mass murderer than the rights of an innocent black man.
Really? The NRA supported this guy carrying a firearm or using a firearm? Well, it's lucky Dana Lash wasn't actually at the CNN town hall saying the direct opposite. Roll it.
I don't believe that this insane monster should have ever been able to obtain a firearm. Ever. I do not think that he should have gotten his hands on any kind of weapon. That's number one. This individual was nuts. And I, nor the millions of people that I represent as a part of this organization that I'm here speaking for, none of us support people who are crazy, who are a danger to themselves, who are a danger to others, getting their hands on a firearm. And we have been for over 20 years, and I have been screaming about this.
Yeah, that is her literally saying that she does not want people with mental illness to actually have access to a firearm. Sorry, what was your argument again? And that's basically where he wraps this video up. He just does his whole social media. And I'm going to ask the same thing. If you found this video informative, please click the like button. Please share this video. Who knows, maybe he'll actually respond to me. Doubt it, but anyway. And at the end of the day, guys, obviously, if you have any questions, any comments, any critique, please feel free to hit me up in the comment section below. Apart from that, guys, I'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great day and enjoy.